Claire Winslow is 34 years old. Last Saturday, a security guard told her she wasn't good enough to use the front door of her own hotel. Her sister, Vivian, had specifically requested that she be redirected to the service entrance, the one for delivery trucks and kitchen staff. Their mother stood 5 meters away, watching the whole thing. She smiled. Not a nervous smile, not an "I'll fix this" smile, a real, genuine smile of satisfaction. They had no idea that 6 months earlier, Claire had quietly purchased the Kingsley Hotel. They had no idea that the engagement party they'd spent $92,000 planning was happening on her property, and they definitely had no idea
Welcome
what
to
was
our
about to
hotel. It is
happen
a pleasure
when
to
the
have you
hotel
here.
manager walked
Please
up to
let me
her
know
and
if you need
said,
anything else.
"Good evening,
Enjoy
ma'am.
your stay
Is
with us."
everything to your satisfaction?" Claire found out about Vivian's engagement through Facebook. Not a phone call, not a text. A public post with a photo of a 14-carat ring and the caption, "She said yes. Celebration details coming soon." 3 days
understand.
later, her mother finally
I will take
called,
care of it.
not to invite
I will
her.
always be
"Claire,
here for you.
I assume you
Don't
saw
you
the
ever
news."
forget that.
Margaret's voice carried that familiar edge, the one reserved specifically for conversations with her. "The party is Saturday,
I
at the
understand.
Kingsley.
Keep your left hand
Wear
pressed
something
firmly
appropriate,
against the base.
and please don't do
Then
anything
slowly
to
rotate.
embarrass your sister. No, how are you? No, we'd love to have you there. Just instructions and warnings." Claire thought about Thanksgiving
Everyone,
2 years
I'd like
earlier.
you to meet
Her
Mark.
mother had
He
introduced
just
her
moved
to a
here from
table of book
Chicago.
club friends, while Vivian stood nearby in a designer dress. "This is Claire,
everything all right?"
my younger one. She's
Yes,
still
I am
figuring
fine.
things out." Claire was 32. She owned 2 hotels, but her mother introduced her like she was a college dropout living in a basement. The thing is, Margaret didn't know about the hotels. None of them did. Not because Claire was hiding it, but because no one had ever asked. Every family dinner, every holiday call, the conversation always circled back to Vivian. Vivian's promotion, Vivian's new apartment, Vivian's perfect boyfriend, Nathaniel from the Harcourt family, and Claire. She was background noise. What her mother didn't know, what none of them knew, was that 6 months earlier, Claire had finalized the purchase of the Kingsley Hotel, the same hotel where her sister was about to throw a lavish engagement party. She hadn't planned it that way. When she'd acquired the Kingsley, she hadn't even known Vivian was dating Nathaniel. But fate, it seemed, had a sense of humor. Claire stared at her phone after her mother hung up. Margaret hadn't even asked if she could come. She'd just assumed Claire had nothing better to do. The favoritism didn't start with the engagement. It started long before Claire had words for it. And if she's honest, there was a piece of it she never fully understood. Not until much later. Every year, on May 12th, her mother would disappear for the day. No explanation, no warning, just gone from morning until evening, and when she came back, her eyes would be red, and she wouldn't talk to anyone for the rest of the night. Claire and Vivian both grew up asking about it, in their own ways, at different ages, and both got the same answer every time. "It's not something you need to worry about." Eventually, they both stopped asking. It became just another locked room in the house of their mother, one more thing that wasn't for them to know. When Claire was 12, homesick from school, bored and restless, she went looking in her mother's closet for a sweater she wasn't supposed to borrow, and found instead a small cedar box tucked behind a row of winter coats. Inside, a knitted baby bonnet, yellowed with age, and a single photograph. An infant, dark-haired, maybe 3 months old, in a hospital blanket. On the back, in handwriting Claire didn't recognize as her mother's careful adult script, but younger, looser, Rose, 3 months. It wasn't her. It wasn't Vivian either. She'd seen enough baby photos of both of them to know. She'd carried the photo downstairs, genuinely curious, no idea she was about to touch something radioactive. "Mom? Who's Rose?" Her mother's face had gone white, then hard, faster than Claire had ever seen it move. She'd crossed the kitchen in 3 steps, taken the photo out of Claire's hands so fast it nearly tore. "That is none of your business. You do not go through my things. Ever. Do you understand me?" Claire had never asked again. She filed it away the way children file away things adults refuse to explain, as simply another fact of how the house worked. not yet understanding it was a door that would matter enormously, 13 years later, in ways she couldn't have guessed. When Vivienne turned 25, their mother gave her $45,000 for a down payment on her first apartment. "You're building a life," Margaret had said, beaming. "This is an investment in your future." When Claire turned 25, she asked for a loan to buy a small bed and breakfast she'd found upstate. 10 rooms, needed work, but she saw potential. Her mother laughed. "Claire, that's not a business plan. That's a fantasy. Vivienne knows how to build a life. You just drift." Claire took out a bank loan instead. 18% interest. It nearly broke her the first year, but she made it work. Then she bought another property. Then another. Nobody asked how. Nobody noticed. When her marriage fell apart 5 years ago, her husband Ryan had cheated, and she'd caught him. She made the mistake of calling her mother for support. The divorce was brutal. Her mother's response still echoes, "I told you, Claire, you don't know how to choose people. Vivienne would never let this happen to her." Claire stopped calling after that. She wasn't bitter anymore, just tired. Tired of proving herself to people who had already decided she wasn't worth watching. Her phone buzzed. An email from Desmond Cole, the general manager at the Kingsley. "Ms. Winslow, I need to inform you about the engagement party booking this Saturday. The client has made some unusual requests regarding guest access. Please advise at your earliest convenience." She opened the attachment. Her chest tightened as she read. There it was, in black and white, a list of names and instructions. Her own name was on that list. 3 names flagged for alternative entrance routing. The first 2 were former colleagues of Nathaniel's, something about a business dispute. Understandable. The third name was hers, and next to it, in Vivienne's handwriting, scanned into the document, "Claire Winslow, sister of bride, redirect to service entrance if she appears. Do not allow through main lobby under any circumstances." She read it 3 times, then a 4th. Her own sister had put her on a list with people her fiancé was actively avoiding. She'd classified Claire as someone who needed to be hidden, kept away from the important guests, the real family. Desmond had added a note. "Ms. Winslow, I found this request highly unusual given your relationship to the property. Should I intervene? Please advise." Claire sat in her office, watching the city lights flicker through the window. The Kingsley stood somewhere in that maze of buildings. Her building, where her sister was planning to humiliate her in front of 200 people. She had options: cancel the event, reveal herself before the party and watch Vivienne scramble, not attend at all and let them think they'd won. None of it felt right. If she didn't go, they'd keep treating her as invisible. If she reacted publicly, they'd call her dramatic. But if she attended and let the truth reveal itself naturally, she typed her response. "Do not change anything. Let them proceed exactly as planned. I will handle this personally." His reply came within minutes. "Understood, Miss Winslow. I'll be on standby." Saturday was going to be interesting. She called Grant the next morning. They'd been friends since college, back when she was just a girl with big dreams and no money. Now he was her attorney, but more importantly, he was the one person who'd watched her build everything from nothing. They put you on a blacklist? At your own hotel? Service entrance? Like you're delivering the shrimp? Pam, Claire, this is insane. Just tell them you own the place. Watch them grovel. And then what? They apologize because they're scared, not because they're sorry. Nothing changes. I'm still the daughter they tolerate. Grant went quiet. What do you actually want? Revenge or closure? The question hung in the air. She'd asked herself the same thing 100 times since reading that email. I don't want revenge. I want them to know I'm not who they think I am. I want to stop shrinking myself for people who never made room for me. That's not nothing, Claire. No, it's not. If you're doing this, you need backup. Want me there? I can come as your +1, old college friend catching up. That works. And bring some documentation, just in case someone demands proof. He paused. You know, this could blow up their whole night. I know. And you're okay with that? She thought about every dinner where she was overlooked. every achievement that went unnoticed, every time her mother looked through her like glass. And underneath all of it, the closet, the photograph, the name Rose she'd never been allowed to ask about again. "I'm okay with not hiding anymore," she said. "Whatever happens after that is their choice." Saturday arrived faster than she expected. By 7, the sun had dipped below the skyline, painting the Kingsley's facade in shades of amber and gold. Claire had chosen her outfit carefully, a simple black dress, elegant but understated, no diamonds, no statement pieces, just pearl earrings her grandmother had left her. The kind of outfit that says, "I belong here," without screaming for attention. The valet recognized her car but said nothing. She'd asked Desmond to keep her attendants quiet. As far as the staff knew, she was just another guest tonight. The main entrance glowed with warm light. Through the glass doors, the lobby, crystal chandeliers casting rainbows across marble floors, guests in evening wear drifting toward the ballroom, laughter, champagne, her sister's perfect night. Claire straightened her shoulders and walked toward the front door. That's when he stepped forward, a security guard in a dark suit, earpiece visible, clipboard in hand. "Good evening, ma'am. Your name?" "Claire Winslow." He scanned his list. She watched his finger stop. His expression flickered, confusion, then practiced neutrality. "I'm afraid you'll need to use the service entrance, ma'am. Excuse me, those are my instructions. The service entrance is around the back, through the kitchen corridor." She didn't move. "Can I ask who gave those instructions?" "The event organizer." He shifted, uncomfortable. "I'm just following protocol, ma'am." Protocol. Her sister had created a protocol for keeping her out. Claire looked past his shoulder, through the glass doors, into the lobby. That's when she saw her mother, standing just inside, looking directly at her. Their eyes met across 15 feet of marble and glass. Margaret didn't move, didn't wave, didn't come to help. She just smiled. That smile, Claire had seen it before, when Vivian won awards in high school, when she graduated summa cum laude, when she announced her engagement. That smile of pure, undiluted pride. But she'd never once directed it at Claire until now. And this wasn't pride, this was satisfaction. 10 meters behind her, Vivian stood near the ballroom entrance, radiant in cream silk, accepting air kisses. She glanced toward the lobby, toward Claire, and there was the smallest flicker of acknowledgement. Then she turned back to her admirers. The security guard cleared his throat. "Ma'am, the service entrance." A bellhop near the concierge desk. Milo, who'd been with the hotel 3 years, noticed the exchange, started to move forward. The guard gave a subtle shake of his head. Milo stopped, looked at Claire with something like apology, then looked away. She stood there 5 full seconds. They felt like hours. Her mother finally broke eye contact, turning to greet an arriving couple with warmth and laughter, as if nothing had happened. "Fine," Claire said quietly. "I'll use the service entrance." She turned and walked around the side of the building, heels clicking against the pavement. Let them think they'd won. The service entrance smelled like industrial cleaner and fresh bread. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a harsh contrast to the crystal-draped elegance 50 feet away. Claire pushed through the heavy metal door into the kitchen corridor. Stainless steel counters, steam rising from simmering pots, the controlled chaos of a 5-star kitchen in full swing. Then silence. One by one, staff noticed her. A prep cook froze mid-chop. A server carrying champagne flutes stopped. Chef Alvarez, who'd been barking orders, went absolutely still. "Ms. Winslow, we weren't expecting you to." "It's fine, chef. Please continue." Nobody moved. They'd all seen the guest list. They knew exactly why she'd come through this door instead of the main entrance. "Really?" she said, keeping her voice calm. "Tonight, I'm just a guest. Carry on." Chef Alvarez nodded slowly. "The salmon is exceptional tonight, Ms. Winslow. My special preparation. I'm sure it will be perfect." The kitchen gradually resumed its rhythm as she walked through, though she felt every eye following her. She reached the service door leading to the ballroom's back corridor. Through the small window, the party in full swing. Crystal chandeliers, elegant guests, her sister at the center, Nathaniel's arm around her waist. 200 people celebrating Vivienne's perfect life. Claire allowed herself a small smile, not bitter, not angry, patient. She straightened her dress, took a breath, pushed through the door. Time to join the party. The ballroom was breathtaking. Even having approved the renovation budget herself, seeing it transformed took her breath away. Gold-draped tables surrounded a central dance floor. A string quartet played Vivaldi. The backdrop behind the main table read, N&V Forever in elegant script. $92,000. She knew, because the invoice had crossed her desk. Her phone vibrated. Grant. In position. Bar, northeast corner. Got what you asked for? She typed back, hold for now. Want to see how far they'll go. Copy. But Claire, don't wait too long. You deserve to be seen. She slipped her phone into her clutch and scanned the room. Her mother held court near the gift table. Vivienne floated between guest clusters, Nathaniel dutifully at her side. Nobody had noticed Claire yet. She'd entered through a side door, blending with returning staff, invisible, exactly as they wanted. She spotted Desmond across the room. Their eyes met briefly. He started to move toward her. She gave the slightest shake of her head. He stopped, nodded once, retreated. A few feet away, her mother was telling someone about Vivienne's accomplishments. Top of her class at Columbia. Nathaniel's family was so impressed. And the Harcourts don't accept just anyone, you know. She gestured expansively, champagne sloshing slightly. We're so blessed. Vivienne has always known exactly what she wants. Claire took a glass from a passing server and found a spot in the shadows. The night was young. Desmond was struggling. She could see it from across the room, the way he kept glancing at her, then at Vivienne, then back. He'd been general manager of the Kingsley for 8 years, long before she'd acquired the property. Discretion was his specialty, but this was testing him. He approached Vivienne's group once, offering to check catering arrangements. Claire watched her sister wave him off without looking at him, too engaged with one of Nathaniel's aunts to acknowledge the staff. When he finally found an excuse to pass near Claire's corner, he leaned in without breaking stride. Ms. Winslow, this situation is highly irregular. Say the word and I can— Not yet. But ma'am, I know what they did, Desmond. I also know what I'm doing. He paused, professionalism warring with loyalty. The kitchen staff are concerned. Word travels. Tell them I appreciate their discretion. And Desmond, she caught his eye, when I need you, I'll let you know. Until then, treat me like any other guest. That's precisely what I cannot do, ma'am. Then treat me like a guest who happens to own the building. A flicker of something, respect, maybe, crossed his face. He nodded once, continued his rounds. Across the ballroom, her mother noticed Desmond speaking to someone in the shadows, narrowed her eyes, tried to identify the figure. Claire stepped slightly behind a floral arrangement. Margaret shrugged, returned to her conversation. Just another anonymous guest. Claire checked her watch. The toasts would begin soon. Vivienne would take the stage, bask in the spotlight. She wondered if her sister would mention her. She already knew the answer. The clinking of glass against crystal silenced the room. Everyone, if I could have your attention. Nathaniel's voice carried across the ballroom. My beautiful fiancé would like to say a few words. Applause rippled. Vivienne glided to the small stage, every inch the blushing bride-to-be. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. This means the world to Nathaniel and me. She launched into acknowledgments. The Harcourt family, Nathaniel's business partners, her sorority sisters, and, of course, my incredible mother. Vivienne gestured toward Margaret, who raised her glass with theatrical humility. Mom, you've been my rock, my inspiration. Everything I am is because of you. More applause. Margaret dabbed at dry eyes. Claire stood frozen in her corner, waiting. I also want to thank everyone who made an effort to be here tonight. Vivienne's gaze swept the room, somehow managing to look at everyone without seeing anyone. Family is about showing up, and I'm so grateful for those who truly care. Her eyes found Claire's for just a moment, a flash of acknowledgement, then away. Some people in this room have overcome personal challenges to be here. A sympathetic smile. Let's just say not everyone in my family understands the value of commitment. But tonight isn't about that. Tonight is about love. Real love. Scattered, uncomfortable laughter. A few guests exchanged glances. Eleanor Harcourt, seated at the head table, frowned slightly. Claire felt the words land like stones. Her divorce. Vivienne was talking about her divorce in front of 200 people, including the family her fiancé came from. Her hand tightened around her glass. Still, she didn't move. Vivienne finished to enthusiastic applause. Before the noise died down, Margaret was already rising. If I may add a few words. She didn't wait for permission. Margaret Winslow never did. When Vivienne was born, I knew she was special. She'd always had a gift for commanding attention. Some children, you just know. You can see their path stretching out before them, golden and bright. She paused for effect. Several guests nodded along. Raising a daughter like Vivienne has been my greatest joy. Watching her graduate top of her class, watching her build her career, and now watching her join one of the most respected families in this city. She raised her glass toward the Harcourts. To your wonderful son, and to the extraordinary woman he's chosen. Hear, hear, someone called. As Margaret sat down, a woman at a nearby table leaned toward her companion. I thought there were 2 daughters? The question carried farther than intended. A brief hush. Margaret heard it. Claire saw her spine stiffen slightly before she turned with a practiced smile. Vivienne is my pride, she said smoothly. Claire is still finding herself. The dismissal hung in the air. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Near the bar, Grant's jaw tightened. He caught Claire's eye, questioning. She gave a slight shake of her head. Not yet. But someone else had noticed the exchange. Eleanor Harcourt was watching Margaret with an expression Claire couldn't quite read. Then her gaze traveled across the room, searching. It landed on Claire. For a long moment, they looked at each other. Eleanor's eyes were sharp, assessing. She didn't look away. Neither did Claire. Vivienne found her 20 minutes later. Claire had been nursing the same glass of champagne, watching the party from her corner. Apparently, she wasn't invisible enough. Oh. Vivienne stopped in front of her, surprise flickering before she composed herself. You actually came. Congratulations on your engagement, Vivienne. Thank you. Her smile was thin. I thought maybe you'd be too overwhelmed. These events can be a lot for some people. I'm managing. Behind her, 3 friends had formed a semicircle. Support troops, witnesses. Vivienne tilted her head. You know, Nathaniel's family is very traditional. They value success, achievement. I hope you understand why we had to be selective about the entrance arrangements. I understand perfectly. Good. She sipped her champagne, watching Claire over the rim. Because tonight is about me, Claire. My engagement, my celebration. Try not to make it about your situation. I wouldn't dream of it. Wonderful. Another thin smile. And maybe next time, consider wearing something a bit more festive. Black is so dreary for a celebration. One friend giggled. Vivienne turned to rejoin her circle, dismissing Claire as easily as she'd dismiss a server. Then she paused, looked back. By the way, how did you get in? I specifically told security. She stopped herself, but not fast enough. You specifically told them what, Vivienne? Her cheeks flushed. Nothing. Forget it. I used the service entrance as requested. For just a moment, something flickered in Vivienne's eyes. Not guilt. Vivienne didn't do guilt. But something close to surprise. Maybe she hadn't expected Claire to actually comply. Beyond her shoulder, Nathaniel stood nearby. He'd heard everything. His expression was troubled. Vivienne didn't see it. Claire did. Margaret appeared as if summoned. Claire! Her voice was low, sharp, a warning. She guided her to an alcove near the service corridor, away from the main crowd, but still visible. Still public enough that Claire couldn't make a scene without witnesses. What are you doing here? Attending my sister's engagement party. Don't be smart with me. You know exactly what I mean. After everything, you just show up. Was I not invited? Her jaw tightened. This is Vivienne's night. Don't ruin it. I haven't done anything, Mom. Good. Keep it that way. She looked at Claire's dress with undisguised disappointment. Couldn't you at least wear something nicer? Something that shows you made an effort? The Harcourts are watching. I won't have you embarrass us. Claire felt something shift inside her. A lock turning, a door closing. Us, she repeated quietly. Who is us exactly? Don't start, Claire. Not tonight. Before she could respond, Desmond appeared at the edge of her vision, expression carefully neutral. I apologize for the interruption. We have a situation with the catering that requires immediate attention. Margaret barely glanced at him. Handle it yourself. We're in the middle of something. I'm afraid I need authorization from, he paused, choosing his words, from management. Then find the management, Margaret snapped. Can't you see I'm speaking with my daughter? Desmond didn't move. His eyes found Claire's. Ms. Winslow, he said slowly. May I have a word? Margaret froze. Her gaze traveled from Desmond to Claire and back again. Ms. Winslow, she repeated. The world seemed to hold its breath. We have a situation with the seafood shipment, Desmond continued, tone perfectly professional, as if this were any normal consultation. The Atlantic salmon arrived with quality concerns. As the owner, I need your approval to substitute with the king salmon from our reserve. Owner. The word dropped like a stone into still water. Margaret's face went slack, her champagne glass tilting dangerously. I'm sorry. Vivian had appeared from nowhere, voice sharp. What did you just call her? Desmond turned with the calm of a man who'd served diplomats and dictators. I addressed Ms. Claire Winslow, the owner of the Kingsley Hotel. Is there a problem? Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Around them, conversation stopped. Nearby guests turned to stare. The string quartet played on, oblivious, their Vivaldi suddenly grotesque against the frozen tableau. Claire kept her voice level. The king salmon will work, Desmond. Tell Chef Alvarez to adjust the sauce to complement. Perhaps a citrus reduction instead of the dill. Excellent choice, ma'am. Desmond inclined his head. A small bow, nearly imperceptible. I'll inform the kitchen immediately. He retreated. The click of his heels on marble echoed in the silence. Claire turned back to her mother and sister. Margaret's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Vivienne had gone pale beneath her carefully applied blush, her hand gripping Nathaniel's arm so tightly her knuckles were white. The owner? Nathaniel's voice was barely above a whisper. Vivienne, did you know? No. Vivienne's voice cracked. No, that's not... She doesn't... Somewhere behind them, a champagne glass shattered on the floor. Someone gasped, and for the first time in 34 years, Claire's family was looking directly at her. This is a joke. Vivienne's voice was too loud, edged with panic. Some kind of sick joke. She doesn't own anything. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. Guests leaned toward each other, eyebrows raised, phones quietly emerging from pockets. I've owned the Kingsley for 6 months, Vivienne. Claire kept her voice calm, conversational. You can verify with the county property records if you'd like. They're public. 6 months, Margaret finally found her voice. That's impossible. We would have known. Someone would have told us. Who would have told you, Mom? You never asked what I do. You never asked about my life at all. Margaret's face cycled through emotions, shock, confusion, something that might have been shame, before it hardened into defensiveness. This is ridiculous. You're making things up to ruin your sister's night. I'm not making anything up, and I'm not trying to ruin anything. Then what is this? Vivienne gestured wildly at the ballroom. Some kind of power play? You wait until my engagement to reveal you own the hotel? How petty can you be? I didn't plan this, Vivienne. I bought this hotel because it was a good investment. You chose to have your party here. You chose to put me on a list. The word list landed hard. Several guests exchanged confused glances. Eleanor Harcourt rose from the head table and began walking toward them, stride measured, deliberate, the walk of a woman who hadn't hurried in decades because the world waited for her. I'm sorry. Her voice cut through the murmurs. Did I understand correctly? You own this hotel? Every eye in the room turned to Claire. Yes, Mrs. Harcourt. She met her gaze steadily. The silence that followed was deafening. Eleanor's face revealed nothing unless she wanted it to. Right now, she wanted it to reveal disappointment. Margaret, you told me your family was modest. You said Claire was struggling. Finding herself, I believe, were your exact words. Her mother's composure crumbled. I didn't know. You didn't know your own daughter owned one of the most prestigious boutique hotels in the city? Eleanor's eyebrow arched a millimeter. She never told us. I find that difficult to believe. Eleanor turned to study Claire with new eyes. The Kingsley has been featured in Architectural Digest twice. The acquisition was covered in the business section of the Tribune. Murmurs swept the crowd. Several guests were now openly on their phones, presumably searching for verification. Vivian stepped forward, desperate. This doesn't change anything. She probably inherited the money or married into it. I didn't inherit anything, Claire said. Even. My ex-husband is a middle school teacher. I built this business myself, starting with a 10-room bed and breakfast 8 years ago. Impressive. Eleanor's tone suggested this was not a casual compliment. She turned to Nathaniel. You told me you'd done due diligence on the family. Nathaniel's face had gone ashen. Vivian said. She told you her sister was… What? Claire asked quietly. He couldn't meet her eyes. Eleanor turned back to Margaret. Let me understand this correctly. Your daughter, this daughter, is a successful business owner, and you had her directed to the service entrance of her own property. Margaret opened her mouth, closed it. Prove it. Vivian's voice was ragged now, stripped of its earlier polish. Anyone can claim to own something. I don't need to prove anything to you, Vivian. Of course you don't. Because you can't. Because this is all. I would appreciate verification. Eleanor cut through like a scalpel. This is quite a significant revelation, and given the circumstances, she let the implication hang. Grant materialized beside Claire. I happen to have the relevant documentation. His voice was crisp, professional. Grant Ellery, Ms. Winslow's attorney. I thought it might be prudent to bring copies tonight, given the unusual guest access arrangements. He produced a leather folder, acquisition paperwork, deed transfer, business registration. Eleanor took the folder, scanned the pages with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd reviewed countless contracts. The crowd pressed closer, straining to see. The Kingsley Hotel, Eleanor read aloud, voice carrying. Acquired 6 months ago. Full ownership transferred to Claire Elizabeth Winslow. No outstanding debt, no partners, sole proprietor. She looked up, fixing Margaret with a gaze that could have frozen champagne. And you had her use the service entrance. Margaret had shrunk somehow, her earlier grandeur deflating. Beside her, Vivian looked like she might be sick. I didn't know, Margaret whispered. How could I have known? By asking, Claire said quietly. By calling. By being interested in my life even once in the past decade. The words weren't angry, they weren't bitter, they were just true. Somehow that made them worse. Eleanor returned the folder to Grant, her decision apparently made. She turned to Nathaniel without another word. We need to talk, now. Eleanor led Nathaniel to a quiet corner, heads bent together in urgent conversation. Around them, the party had fractured. Some guests pretended to resume normal conversations, stealing glances. Others made no pretense at all, watching openly like spectators at a tennis match. Margaret grabbed Claire's arm. Claire, please, you're embarrassing us. Stop this. Claire gently removed the hand. No, Mom. You embarrassed yourselves. I just showed up. So what now? Vivian's mascara was starting to smudge, her perfect facade cracking. You're going to cancel the party? Ruin my engagement out of spite? I'm not going to do anything, Vivian. The party will continue. Your engagement is your business, not mine. Margaret stared, bewildered. Then what do you want? What is this about? The question hung in the air. What did she want? Not revenge. Revenge would mean she still cared about their opinion, not an apology. Words wouldn't undo 30 years of dismissal. I want you to understand something. She looked at them both, her mother, her sister, the family that had never seen her. I'm not here to prove I'm better than you. I'm here because you thought I was less, and I'm done accepting that. Claire, I'm not angry, Mom. I'm just done pretending. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. You put me on a blacklist at my own sister's party, at my own hotel, and you smiled when security turned me away. Her mother's face crumpled. When you're ready to have a real conversation about why you've treated me differently for 30 years, I'll be here. But I won't be invisible anymore. For once, neither of them had a response. Eleanor Harcourt returned from her corner conference, Nathaniel trailing behind, expression that of a man who'd just received very bad news. Vivienne, we need to talk. Later, in private. Nathaniel, whatever she told you, later. The single word silenced her. Eleanor approached Margaret with the gracious smile of someone delivering a death blow. Mrs. Winslow, this has been a most illuminating evening. Margaret attempted to rally. Mrs. Harcourt, I assure you, this changes nothing about Vivienne and Nathaniel's relationship. I'm afraid that's not your decision to make. Eleanor's smile never wavered. It seems we were given an incomplete picture of your family. I hope you understand we'll need to have some longer conversations with Nathaniel about his choices. What does that mean? It means exactly what I said. Eleanor's gaze was pleasant and utterly merciless. We Harcourts are thorough people. We don't make major decisions based on partial information. Margaret's face drained of color. Eleanor turned to Claire, her expression shifting, subtle but distinct. The dismissal was gone. In its place, something like recognition. Ms. Winslow, I apologize for any misunderstanding tonight. She produced a card from her clutch. If you're ever interested in discussing business, or simply having lunch, I'd welcome the opportunity. Claire took the card. Thank you, Mrs. Harcourt. Please, Eleanor. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. I always prefer to know who the interesting people in a room are. It seems I was looking in the wrong direction. With that, she glided away to collect her husband. Vivienne stood frozen, watching her future mother-in-law retreat. The engagement wasn't cancelled, but something had changed permanently, and everyone in the room knew it. Claire found Grant near the bar. You okay? I think so. That was... He shook his head, almost laughing. I've seen courtroom drama, but that was something else. I'm going to go. She glanced around. Nervous laughter, hurried whispers, guests making excuses to leave early. I've said what I needed to say. Want company? No, I need the walk. She made her way to her mother and sister one last time. They stood together near a pillar, isolated, no guests nearby. People had started giving them space. I'm leaving now, she said. Margaret looked up, eyes red-rimmed. Claire, not because I'm running, because I said what I needed to say. I didn't... She stopped, started again. I just wanted Vivienne to shine. I wanted the Harcourts to be impressed. I was trying to help her. I know, Mom. Claire's voice was gentle but firm. But you didn't have to dim my light to make Vivienne shine. The words landed. She saw them hit. Vivienne said nothing. For once, she had no clever response, no deflection, no attack. She just stood there, mascara streaked and silent. Claire turned and walked toward the main entrance, the front door, the one she'd been denied hours earlier. No one stopped her. The staff she passed gave small nods of acknowledgement. A doorman held the entrance open, a gesture of respect. Good evening, Miss Winslow. Good evening, Milo. She stepped out into the night. The air was cool, clean, a relief after the suffocating tension of the ballroom. She stood on the sidewalk a moment, breathing. Then she started walking. Behind her, the party continued without her. But for the first time, she wasn't invisible. She was free. She woke to 12 missed calls from her mother. She didn't listen to the voicemails. She already knew what they'd say. Some combination of accusation, justification, and manufactured victimhood. Her phone buzzed with a text from Vivienne, then another, then a third. The first, how could you do this to me? The second, an hour later, we need to talk. The third, sent at 3 a.m., nothing. Just 3 dots that appeared and disappeared. She'd started typing something and given up. Grant called at 10 with the update she'd been expecting. The Harcourts had a family meeting this morning. My contact at their law firm heard Nathaniel was there for 3 hours. The engagement's still on. For now. A pause. but the prenup is being completely revised. Eleanor wasn't pleased with how things were represented. Claire poured coffee, watching the steam rise. What does revised mean? It means Vivian no longer has the same access to Harcourt assets she was promised. They're adding contingencies, lots of them. She should have felt satisfied. Instead, she just felt tired. There's something else, Grant continued. 3 guests from the party have contacted the Kingsley this morning. They want to book events. Really? Apparently watching you handle that situation impressed some people. One woman said, and I quote, "Anyone who can stay that composed under that kind of pressure is someone I want to do business with." She almost laughed. Her family had tried to humiliate her, and instead, they'd advertised her professionalism to 200 potential clients. "Pam, Claire, you still there?" "Yeah." She set down her coffee, just processing. "You did good last night. You know that, right?" "I know." But knowing didn't make her mother's 12 missed calls disappear. On the 13th call, she answered. "Claire." Her mother's voice sounded like she'd been crying, or yelling, possibly both. "Finally. I've been trying to reach you all morning. I know. You've ruined everything." The words tumbled out in a rush. "The Harcourts are questioning the wedding. They're changing the prenup." Eleanor barely looked at Vivian this morning. "They're talking about reassessing the relationship." "I didn't ruin anything, Mom. Don't give me that. You planned this. You bought that hotel knowing Vivian would—" "I didn't plan anything. I bought the hotel because it was a good investment. Vivian chose to have her party there. Vivian chose to put my name on a blacklist. You chose to watch me get turned away and smile." Claire kept her voice steady. "I just existed." Silence on the other end. "You should have told us," her mother finally said. "We're your family." "Family asks, Mom. Family includes. Family doesn't put you on a list with instructions to use the service entrance." More silence. Claire could hear her breathing, could almost see her struggling to find a response. "I didn't know you were successful," Margaret said quietly. "You never said." "You never asked. Not once in 8 years. Every conversation was about Vivienne. Every holiday, every phone call. And when I did try to share something, you changed the subject." "That's not—" She stopped. "I'm not angry," Claire said, and meant it. "I'm just done pretending, done shrinking myself. Done hoping you'll finally see me. Mom, when you're ready to have a real conversation about why you've treated me differently for 30 years, I'll be here. But I won't be invisible anymore. Not for you, not for anyone." She hung up before her mother could respond. Her hands were shaking, but her voice had been steady. That was enough. 2 weeks later, Grant called with news. The wedding's still happening, but they've changed venues. The Harcourts apparently didn't want to hold it at the Kingsley. Too many memories. Too many reminders of the night they realized their future daughter-in-law wasn't exactly who she claimed to be. Claire was in her office at a new property, a converted warehouse she was developing into a boutique hotel in the Arts District. Plans spread across her desk, a contractor waiting in the lobby. The prenup? Significantly revised. Vivian doesn't get access to Harcourt family assets unless the marriage lasts at least 7 years. Even then, it's limited. She thought about her sister, who'd spent her entire life optimizing for the perfect catch. Now she'd landed her prize, but the terms had changed entirely. She's still marrying him? Apparently. Nathaniel seems committed, though his mother is making him attend family alignment sessions before the ceremony. Grant paused. "I'm not sure what those are, but they sound unpleasant." Claire almost felt sorry for Vivian, almost. "What about my mother?" No word. He hesitated. "A letter came to the hotel this morning, addressed to you. I had Desmond forward it." The envelope arrived an hour later, her mother's handwriting, careful, precise. Claire opened it expecting the same clipped, defensive tone from the phone call. Instead, it went on for 2 full pages, and by the second paragraph, she understood why. "Claire, I don't understand why you had to do what you did, and part of me thinks you enjoyed embarrassing us. But I also know I haven't been fair, and I'm trying to understand why. I think I owe you something I've never given you, which is the truth about a few things. Before I met your father, I had a daughter. Her name was Rose. I was 19. Her father wasn't someone I stayed with, and I've never talked about that part of my life because I was ashamed of it for a very long time. The wrong choices I made, how young and unprepared I was. Rose died when she was 3 months old. They call it sudden infant death now. Back then, nobody had good words for it at all. I woke up one morning and she was gone, and there was nothing anyone could tell me that made any of it make sense. I didn't tell your father the whole truth until years into our marriage, and even then, not all of it. I certainly never told you or Vivian. May 12th was her birthday. I know you both noticed I disappeared every year. I never explained because I didn't know how, and because some part of me was terrified that if I said it out loud, I'd have to actually feel it, instead of just carrying it quietly, which was the only way I knew how to survive it. When Vivienne was born, she had Rose's exact hair, the same eyes, even the same way of turning her head. I know that sounds insane to say to you now, in a letter, but it is the truth, and I have never told anyone this. I think some part of me decided, without ever admitting it to myself, that I had been given a second chance to be the kind of mother I never got to be. I poured everything into her because some broken, irrational part of me was still trying to save Rose. And then you came, and you looked nothing like her, and I am so ashamed to write this, Claire, but somewhere in me, that mattered. Not because I loved you less on purpose. I don't think I ever consciously chose to fail you, but I let myself off the hook for 30 years by never looking closely enough at what I was doing, and you paid for that every single day, and I let you. This isn't an apology, not really. I don't think I've earned the right to call it that yet. I'm not ready to talk about all of it out loud, but I wanted you to know, you were never less. You were just standing next to a ghost you didn't know existed, and I let you think it was something wrong with you instead. It wasn't. It was never you. Mom. Claire sat with the letter for a long time. She read it twice, then a third time, the way you reread something that finally answers a question you'd stopped expecting an answer to. It didn't undo the closet, the 12 years of being introduced as still figuring things out, the blacklist, the smile at the door. She noticed that clearly, and she let herself notice it. But it did explain a shape she'd been living inside her whole life without a name for it. A shape that had a name now, Rose. She put the letter in her desk drawer, next to the folded cedar box photograph she'd never quite forgotten, and went back to work. 3 months later, Claire sat in her office at the Kingsley, watching the sun set over the city. The new property was nearly ready for its soft opening. They'd booked 6 events for the first quarter, one of them, ironically, for a client she'd met at Vivienne's engagement party, a woman who'd watched the entire confrontation and apparently decided Claire was exactly the kind of businesswoman she wanted to work with. Strange how things work out. She thought about that night a lot. Not the confrontation itself. That memory was sharp but fading, like a photograph left in sunlight. What she thought about was the moment before, the moment she decided not to hide. For 10 years, she'd built her business in silence. Not because she was ashamed, but because she'd learned early that her accomplishments didn't matter to her family. They'd already decided who she was. Nothing she achieved would change that. So she'd stopped trying. The reveal at the party wasn't about proving them wrong. It wasn't about revenge, or humiliation, or even justice. It was about refusing to be invisible. That's the lesson, she thinks. The one it took her 34 years, and one letter about a sister she never got to meet, to fully learn. You can spend your whole life trying to earn the approval of people who will never give it. Shrinking yourself to fit the space they've allotted you, hoping that if you're successful enough, good enough, they'll finally see you. Or you can stop. You can build something real for yourself, by yourself. And when they finally look up, if they ever look up, you can simply say, I was here all along. You just weren't paying attention. That's not revenge. That's just truth. Spring came early that year. Claire signed the papers on her 5th property in March, a historic inn upstate, not far from where she'd bought her first bed and breakfast 8 years earlier. Full circle, in a way. Vivienne's wedding happened in April. Claire wasn't invited. She wasn't surprised. But Nathaniel sent an email the week before. Claire, I want to apologize for how things went at the engagement party. I should have said something when Vivian made those arrangements. I didn't, and I'm sorry. Vivian is processing. She's embarrassed, though she'd never admit it. Give her time. For what it's worth, I think what you've built is impressive. My mother brings it up at least once a week. I hope you and Vivian can talk someday. Best, Nathaniel. Claire didn't reply. She saved the email. Her mother called once a month now. The conversations were short, awkward, full of silences neither of them quite knew how to fill. But she was trying, in her own way. She'd never brought up the letter directly, and neither had Claire. Some things, it turned out, were easier to say once, in ink, than to repeat out loud. Last week, Margaret asked about the new property. First time she'd ever asked about the business. We're restoring the original Victorian details, Claire said. Should be ready by fall. A pause. That sounds lovely, Claire. Not praise exactly, but acknowledgement. It wasn't much. It was more than she'd had before. In May, on the 12th, her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. The first time in Claire's life that day had ever been mentioned between them without her having to ask. I'm going to visit her grave this afternoon. You don't have to come, but you're welcome to, if you ever want to. Claire looked at it for a long time. She didn't go that year. She wasn't ready, and she'd decided a long time ago that she was done doing things before she was ready. For anyone. But she wrote back, "Thank you for telling me. Maybe next year." It felt, for the first time in a very long time, like a door left open on her own terms, instead of one slammed in her face. She doesn't hate them, her mother, her sister, the family that spent 30 years looking through her. She just doesn't need them to see her anymore. She sees herself, and that's enough. It took her a long time to understand that, to really feel it, not just say it. But she does now. She's not the invisible daughter anymore. She's just Claire Winslow, and she's exactly who she chose to be. Setting boundaries isn't about revenge. It isn't about making people feel bad or proving you're better than them. It's about respect for yourself. You don't have to be loud to be heard. You don't have to be dramatic to make a point. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop hiding. Show up as yourself, speak your truth calmly, and let the people around you decide how they want to respond. Some of them won't like it. Some of them will call you dramatic, or vindictive, or ungrateful. That's their problem, not yours. Your worth isn't determined by people who refuse to see it. Not by the mother who overlooked you, not by the sibling who dismissed you, not by the family that made you feel like you were less. You are not less. You never were. This is Claire Winslow, and she is no longer the invisible daughter.